Good evening and welcome to the first Speakers Symposium for TEDxChilliwack. I'm Mary Erickson and have had the privilege of co-emceeing the last two TEDx events. I want to thank Tim McAlpine for hosting this event, and just a reminder, this fantastic theater is available for rent, complete with bells and whistles. Michael's the bell, I'm the whistle. TEDx 2019 will be held on April the 13th, 2019, and is returning to the G.W. Graham Theatre. It's going to be the fourth TEDx held here in Chilliwack, and yes, it keeps getting bigger and better. This year, we anticipate 300 people will attend the event, and will once again be live streamed to hundreds more. To date, the TEDxChilliwack talks have had over 150,000 total views. The theme is On Purpose, and it is with purpose that we are here today. So let me introduce Michael Berger, who will be hosting this evening's event.
You've watched the videos. You've thought about ideas you heard, and you've discussed those ideas with others. Now you might have an idea worth spreading and want to share that idea with Chilliwack and the world. TEDxChilliwack is the opportunity for you to step into the limelight and share your ideas on purpose. Welcome to our very first Speaker Search Symposium. This germ of an idea from Mary Erickson has now bloomed into this event. You're here because you want to learn more about the process of becoming a TEDx speaker. We've got a night packed with information for you. You'll hear from a variety of people, a few of our organizing committee members, some former speakers, and even a public speaking coach or two. At the end of the evening, I'll ask a few people to come back up on stage and we'll have a Q&A session. So please hold your questions until that time. And after the Q&A session, feel free to mingle throughout the first floor of the building, and we'll meet some of the other organizers who didn't get a chance to make it up here on stage. Now, before we begin, I'd like to thank some of our visionary partners who make TEDxChilliwack happen. 89.5 The Drive, Chill TV, Cowork Chilliwack, Scott McVetti of Remax NIDA Realty, and the 18th Camel Coaching and Consulting. We have a number of champion and pioneer partners too, and we're always willing to add more. So if you're looking to sponsor TEDxChilliwack, please see one of the organizing committee after the show. All right, are you ready to go? Yeah. Let's start by giving you the official explanation of what TEDx is. Let's roll the video.
From Kenya to Colombia, from Iraq to Korea, in slums, in schools, in prisons, and in theaters, every day people gather at TEDx events around the world to hear the best ideas bubbling up in their communities. Today, you are part of a global conversation about our shared future. So what is this TEDx? TEDx is an initiative of the TED Conference, a nonprofit devoted to ideas worth spreading. We grant free licenses to allow TED-like events to spread globally. This event today is based on the TED Conference format and ideals, but is independently organized by your local community. So please make sure to thank the team of volunteers who worked so hard on today's event. It's their ideas, dedication, and time that made it all possible. It's they who booked all the speakers. And the views you'll hear today are, of course, those of those speakers, not necessarily of TEDs. But we hope their talks spark an exciting conversation among you. This is a day for curiosity and for skepticism, for openness and for critical thinking, for inspiration and for action. The more you enter into it, the more you'll take out. And now, on with the show.
Barris Carden is TEDxChilliwack's jack of all trades. From the executive committee to marketing and talent acquisition, and even running the spotlight at our applicant showcase nights, Barris is involved in all aspects of TEDxChilliwack. Barris is going to come to the stage now to explain the initial steps to get you from here to here. Actually, he'll tell you how to apply to speak and how to prepare for your pitch at our applicant showcase nights. Barris Carden.
Thank you, Mick. Appreciate that. So I'm the president of Chill TV, and I was promised in television you get a teleprompter, and I was promised a teleprompter because I didn't memorize my script. So there's a confidence monitor, I see that, but that's not giving me confidence. So yeah, it's a bit nerve-wracking being up here, and maybe rather than start with how the process works, let's talk about why we started this process. And I'm going to read something to you that I found online at Psychology Today. Humans were not the greatest, fastest, or fiercest animal. Early humans survived by their wits and their ability to collaborate. Those that worked together well, helping others in their group, probably survived and passed on traits that contributed to social behavior. Failure to be a part of the social group, getting kicked out, probably spelled doom for early humans. Anything that threatens our status in our social group, like the threat of ostracism, feels like a very great risk to us. So the threat of ostracism is what we face when we are doing public speaking. And it was the great 20th century philosopher Jerry Seinfeld said, you know, being afraid of public speaking and having that be more fearful than dying, it's like being at a funeral and you prefer to be in the coffin than delivering the eulogy. And so really that's what it's all about, is when we decided as a TEDx group, we're going to create a process where we enable prospective speakers, people with wonderful ideas that want to communicate that as a TED Talk. We're going to create a ramp for them to be able to do their TED Talk with confidence. So the first step to that process is right today. And what we're doing today is the Speaker Search Symposium. You're here because you're interested in becoming a TEDx speaker, which is great. That's exactly what you want to do. Ask questions today, learn lots, and if you are inspired to go forth, then the next step in the process is to go online to TEDxChilliwack.com and sign up to become a speaker. Now, we had 100 applications last year, lots, so we're expecting way more this year. Sign up online, be passionate in your application, sell yourself. November 15th is the cutoff, so it's coming up. November 19th, our committee gets together and picks the best applications with the best ideas. And then we nominate those to go through to our applicant showcase nights held in January, February at the Cottonwood Theatre, and a lot of you may have remembered those from past years. Those have been very successful, hundreds of cheering fans. And you know what? Like, a lot of people have never spoken in front of an audience before. It's wonderful. Not everybody gets through. That's okay. It's not a TED Talk. It's your narrative on what a TED Talk is. It's your elevator pitch. And if you are successful enough to go through, you'll be selected by the audience and our speaker selection committee. And there's 3 people each night that will go through, so a total of 9 that will go through to our actual TEDx event on April 13th. And we're going to be picking the best ideas, remember that, under the categories of technology, entertainment, and design. So the idea is stick to those categories and have an idea that's worth sharing, something that you're a thought leader in. Because if you do that and do a lot of research, you can become a TED Talk speaker. Now, just because you've become successful doesn't mean you're going to be the best speaker off the bat. That's why we have a intensive coaching process that starts after your successful application or a successful applicant showcase and when you move through. So what we'll do is pair you with one of our great coaches, and for the next 10 weeks or so, you will become prepared. You may be the worst speaker in the world, but with that great idea, we're going to make you the best speaker in the world. You're going to have a TED Talk at the end that you're going to be proud of, that is going to be filmed, it's streamed internationally, and you get that TED Talk for the rest of your life. So it's something that you'll see with some of our other speakers later on that they use even for jobs and things like that. So you'll hear about that. But thank you for coming tonight, and enjoy the show. Michael.
Thank you, Barris. So one of the things that you'll learn to do is to be able to speak without notes, just like Barris and I. Now, one thing, Barris did mention some dates. He may not be aware, but the actual closing date for the applications is November the 19th, which is a Monday. So you have that final weekend to actually get your application in. Kim Gemmell is a local author, inspirational speaker, and was one of our speakers at TEDxChilliwack 2017. Kim is here today to share with you the importance of being ready for the TEDxChilliwack applicant showcase nights and what her process was for preparing. Kim Gemmell.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. Wow, I look a little bit different than I did last year. Anyways, how many of you here tonight are aspiring to do a TED Talk? Wow, great, good for you. Well, hopefully tonight we'll be able to give you some ideas and tips to take that to the next level of getting up there on the stage like me. So first of all, you definitely want to have a great grasp of knowledge of what you're speaking about. You want to make it worthy of something to listen to. And when you have a very good grasp of what you're going to be talking about, you will come across as more confident. And a confident person always comes across as more credible. And people tend to want to hear what credible people have to say. You want to make sure that you are very passionate about what you're speaking about. Talking about the tea in China might not be cutting it because it's not of interest to what is going on in our current life. So you want to make sure that what you're talking about is thought-provoking. It's going to be related to where we're at in life, what's going on in our world. We want to learn something from what you have to say. When you're passionate about what you talk about, it kind of comes a little bit easier, and the influx of your tone of voice makes all the difference to engage an audience so that they don't go to sleep. 17 minutes can be a long time to engage a person. So if you have influx and passion in your voice, you're going to keep them longer. If I was to stand here and say, fulfillment isn't just about objects or things. Fulfillment is about our relationships with each other. You're going to lose your audience, right? Like you're standing kind of head down and no influx in your tone. You want to stand proud, stand up and say, fulfillment isn't just about objects or things. True fulfillment is about our relationships with each other. So do you see the difference there? Do you see how we can engage that person with our passion about what we're speaking about? It's relevant and it's important and it's something that we should listen to. Next, you want to keep your topic relevant to what you're speaking about. So let's say you're gung-ho, you're ready, you want to do that TED Talk, it's been on your bucket list and you're ready to go. Then you find out that the topic isn't really relevant to your expertise, to your field of expertise. So what do? Do you wait till another year till it becomes something relevant? Or can you turn a spin on what you know and make it relevant? So for example, when I was ready, I wanted to do my TED Talk, I was like, okay, I'm ready. But then the theme was future shapers. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? I do motivational speaking about conquering your goals and rising above adversity. To me, future shapers meant technology, and I barely know how to navigate around my Facebook. But after some thinking, I thought, you know what? Our relationships are being affected by the seclusion that we are getting from social media. Of course, social media is a great thing. It's our future, but we need that balance. So thus became the value of the human connection unplugged. So take whatever your expertise is, spin it around to make it relevant to what the theme is going to be for the TED Talk that you're applying to speak for. And last but not least, be prepared. I don't think you can be prepared enough, really, even for the little things. Of course, you want to know your talk inside and out, memorize it, but make it yet feel that it isn't memorized. Can be a tricky thing to do. So make sure that you do know it inside and out. Speaking in front of your dog or cat for the next couple months practicing is a lot different when you're standing in front of a big audience and the lights are on and you see that number counting down of the minutes, and you can tend to lose sight of where you're at. And paying attention to all those little things really is important. If you're a nervous type of person like me, you want to Google or get a coach, a speaking coach, or Google breathing exercises to calm the nerves of a public speaker. It really did help me. And even the little attention to detail for you women out there, this is a funny story in closing that I like to say. I did not realize that the carpet was going to have such a big, thick shag carpet, and I had high heels on. So when we talk, we want to address all aspects of the room, and at the G.W. Graham Theatre, it's a big U shape. So you want to kind of, shuffle a little bit and move to the center and off to the side. Well, so I get on stage already, like I think I'm ready. Okay, here we go. I come up on stage, and I'm standing here, and can't move. I'm getting stuck. My heels are getting stuck in the thick shag carpet. And I'm thinking, oh, now I got to try to memorize my 17 minutes staying upright. But thankfully, I did, and I delivered a fairly okay TED Talk, I thought. Anyways, I didn't fall down. I stayed upright. So, anyways, hopefully those little tips will help you get to the next level and deliver a successful TED Talk. And if you are getting stuck up in the car, just kick off your shoes. Thank you very much, and good luck.
That's one reason I didn't wear heels tonight. Scott McVetti is the fellow that drives around in a car with a life-size photo of himself on it. You may have just seen it on your way in, but he also got his TEDxChilliwack start in year one as one of our inaugural speakers. That inspired him to take the leap to join the organizing committee, and ever since he's been involved in the selection and mentoring of the speakers and speaker coaches. And as TEDxChilliwack continues to grow, so does the mentorship process. Scott will explain this process that takes you from the applicant showcase night to presenting your talk on April the 13th. Scott McVetti.
So most of you already know that TED is an acronym. It stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. And their slogan is Ideas Worth Sharing, or Spreading. And that is basically what we're looking for. We're looking for about 12 or 13 ideas worth spreading. And you've heard about our speaker showcase nights. This is kind of what it looks like. You're up on stage. All you have is you and your idea. And us as organizers, this is one of the hardest nights for us because for every speaker we select, there's usually 2 or 3 that go home empty-handed, just like you would on The Voice. And what we've found is we need to explain to people actually what we're looking for and what we need, and we're hoping that if we do this for people that are prospective speakers, that we will get everybody ready, willing, and able, which will again make it harder for us, but it will make it better for people on the day of. And we do have 3 simple rules that we follow as a selection committee. And first is there a hidden agenda? And TED is very clear that they don't want somebody with political motives or spiritual motives or commercial motives. So if you're trying to convince or coerce or cash in, you're probably not presenting a TED Talk. You're doing something that's self-fulfilling. And again, we're looking for ideas worth sharing, which is our second criteria. Like, is it a TED Talk? Is it something that everybody is going to be at the water cooler at work the next day, and after viewing it, they'll be like, wow, I heard this really cool talk. That's the crux of what we're looking for, is an idea worth spreading. And the third criteria is, are you a thought leader? And by this, there's a number of different interpretations for that. But if you come up with an idea, we'll talk a lot about ideas as we go through this. And if you are the creator of an idea, you're probably a thought leader. If you can take an idea to a new place that's really cool, then you're probably a thought leader. Or maybe you're just working with the idea at the leading edge of whatever that idea might be. And it could be something really big, it could be something really small, but ideally, we're looking for, again, 12 or 13 thought leaders for the day. And at the applicant showcase nights, again, it's just you and your idea, and that is what we're looking for. And again, like you hear about TED Talks being about 18 minutes long. The best TED Talks, the most watched TED Talks, they're about 10 minutes on average, not 18 minutes. If you can't get your TED Talk into an 18-minute span, it's probably more than one idea. But again, you should, like I know, again, I drew a lot from my experience from being in year one, and I thought, okay, I got to be 18 minutes. Like I thought a good TED Talk had to be 18 minutes long. And we didn't have any of the rehearsal nights I'm going to talk about. We just did a run through the night before, and I kind of went through it with everybody, and the feedback I got was, well, that kind of sucks. And you can laugh, it did. But so I stayed up the whole night before and pared it down to 13 minutes, and I think it was a little bit better. But if I could have prepared for it over the weeks leading up to it, I think I would have saved myself a lot of grief, and that's what we're going to work with. So if you get to the audition nights, great. We do have a video that we'll share with all of the successful applicants on how to prepare for it. Again, it's usually 3 or 4 minutes, so it's an elevator pitch. And you're not explaining your TED Talk, you're just trying to get people excited about the idea. Think of like a movie trailer or something like that, where you just get people excited. I'm not sure if Barris touched upon it, but there is one audience selection each night. We have 3 audition nights, and then the rest are picked by the selection committee. I've as of today, I changed us from judges to selection committee just because it sounds so much nicer. But again, be prepared and try to focus on your idea. We don't really pick the best speakers. A lot of people in our audience are surprised with who we pick, but we can take somebody with a really good idea and work on their speaking skills. But if you're a smooth talker that doesn't really have anything to say, we probably can't change your idea, because that's not what we're here for. It's your idea, and we're just helping you get that out to the world. Speaking of that, Brenda Dick was one of our success stories from last year. This is her on her audition night, so she's up there with her paper in hand, just shaking like a leaf. But she had a really good idea. She is a guerrilla gardener, and for those of you that don't know, that means that she plants gardens, but not on her own property, on property that she doesn't own. She just goes in and does stuff, and it's actually a really cool idea. She's planted stuff all over Chilliwack, and she has a web page about it, but she was definitely not the smoothest speaker at the audition nights. But as selection committee, not judges, we had what was called a wild card, and of the 4 people on that selection committee, she didn't make any of our top, but all of us, she made our wild card. So we decided to go with her, and we worked with her, and she had a fantastic presentation the day of. And to make it a little more personal, I just have a little slideshow here just of speakers over the years and some of the challenges we had with them. First is Cliff Prang. He's a local comedian. I'm sure a lot of you have already heard of him. Our challenge with him was he was a better speaker than any of us. He's a professional actor and comedian, and I was worried that he would be able to embrace the mentorship program that we have developed over the last year and a half, and he went into it wholeheartedly and took all of our advice. Basically what we do for the mentorship is each person is assigned a coach, and we have rehearsal nights. There's 2 per week, leading all the way up until about a week before the event. And we come here, and basically it's 3 or 4 coaches and 3 or 4 speakers, so it's not a big crowd, but you work through whatever you need to work through. So some people, they have their whole talk written out, and they just go through it, and some people are just like, I have these ideas, and they throw them out, and we work through them, and we kind of dissect it and put it back together. And everybody that took part in these rehearsal nights, they all had some of the best talks at the day of. And I think we're actually going to make it compulsory for this year. So it's a real benefit. Again, relating it back to my experience in 2016, I didn't practice in front of anybody except for my mirror at home. And then I didn't find out until the night before that it needed a lot of work. So these are a really good thing. David Jimmy, he was one of our speakers last year, and the hard part he had coming up with is whether he actually had a good idea. And he actually had a really good, like a great idea, just about if the indigenous people in your community thrive, then the community itself thrives. And he's a local chief here and an influential leader, and it turned out to be a great talk. Here's Brenda. I thought she was dressed up as the Hamburglar when she first came out with those boots, but she knocked it out of the park. She just embraced it, and she is, if you meet her, she's a character and a half, and you can tell from that. And a big part of that was just her working through those rehearsals and taking input from people and working on her PowerPoint. All those were things that she had never done before, but she was super confident, and everybody just loved her the day of the event. And this one she was our best received online applicant from 2017. And this is Allison, and I'm forgetting her last, Vaughn. Yeah, so she's a doctor. Her talk was on potty training cows. And so a lot of people watched this. TEDx actually featured her video on their site for about a day and a half, so she got a whole like if you're shared on TEDx, you get millions of people on that site every day. And again, that's something that we want to work with through you is just kind of search engine optimization, picking the right title. And if it's something that catches on with people, it can go crazy. So that's something to keep in mind. And here is David Legere. He's the local Bill Gates, I call him. This is a Chilliwack boy. He invented a wheelbarrow and then took that money from the wheelbarrow and made a hydrogen fuel cell. And it is the most effective hydrogen fuel cell in the world. And our challenge with him is he's way smarter than any of us, way smarter than any of you, probably anyway, I shouldn't insult you. But he came here to the rehearsal nights with all these bar graphs and charts and efficiency monitors, and we're like dumb it down. He took his technology, and it's running a fleet of trucks in China right now, which is a huge deal for a guy from Chilliwack to do that. And he is probably going to be the leading edge on fuel efficiency into the coming future. And he's from Chilliwack, and people needed to know that. So here's our group from last year, at least most of them. So this is at the theater, and I can tell you from 2016, you end up having a really tight bond with everybody that you shared that stage with that day. It's a big growing experience and learning experience for everybody. It's a lot of fun. Again, looking back at my experience, I kind of missed out on the fun factor. So my job is to help you guys have fun in making the best talk that you can. So just if you have an idea, or you think you have an idea, or if you know somebody that thinks they have an idea, they should talk to us and send us an email, or you can go on to our website, and we'll happily respond and help you get ready for the day, because we want everybody to be successful in their applications, and we want everybody to knock it out of the park when it comes to TEDx. Thank you.
So if you were counting in that previous picture that showed the number of speakers, there were 13 people in that picture, but we actually had 15 speakers. So this year, we're having a total of 12 speakers. 9 will come through the application process, and 3 will be what are called curated speakers. So the selection committee will be selecting 3 speakers from the community to supplement the people that apply as well. And speaking of speakers, Marinaz Basiri was one of our 2018 alumni speakers, and she was just one click away from sending an email trying to take the easy way out and decline her slot for the applicant showcase night. Now, luckily for her, and of course for us, she ended up deleting that email and then proceeded with her audition, where She won one of the coveted TEDxChilliwack speaking slots. So Marinaz, if you can start making your way up here, and her story is one of personal growth and how her TEDxChilliwack experience has impacted her life both leading up to her talk and after. Marinaz Basiri.
So it was 2 days before the audition that I decided I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to write an email saying something came up, and that's it. I'm not going to do it. It's not because I didn't have enough time to write my audition pitch or prepare for it, but it's because I didn't think I had a strong enough pitch. I'd focused too much on wanting to speak at TEDx. So I'd written about small wins and how important small wins are, and that if we focus on small wins, then we can achieve bigger and bigger accomplishments. So my title was good, but I didn't think my pitch was good. And so I started writing the email, and then as I wrote it, before sending it, I thought, Marinaz, why? Why did you even embark on this process? Why do you want to speak at TEDx? And so I closed the email, and I thought about it. And I thought about it some more, and I got tired of thinking, so I took a nap. And I woke up and thought about it some more, and then I had the answer. I wanted to speak at TEDx because I wanted to prove to myself that I'd overcome a challenge. Sorry. I'd overcome a challenge that I'd been facing for a long time. Until I was 12, I had a condition called selective mutism. And it's an extreme social anxiety disorder that impacts your ability to speak in certain social settings. So until I was 12, nobody except my parents and some friends had heard my voice. And when I got to 12 years old, I decided, this is it. I've had it. I have to get my voice out. I have to figure out who I am, what my identity is. So I embarked on this journey of finding my voice. And I used small wins. My journey was filled with failures and disappointments. And it was the small wins that took me farther and farther, and eventually I became able to speak. So now that I had the why, and I had connected to my personal story, then I wrote the pitch. I wrote a new pitch, and I went and did the audition, and I got the talk. And this is the most important thing I learned during my audition and through the TEDx and even afterwards, that if you connect your why to your story, it empowers you. It gives you the confidence you need, because it then becomes your responsibility to use that story to help others. And that's all you need. So after my TEDx, I kept that in mind. Go ahead with your why and your story connected together. And that has allowed me to do a lot of cool things after doing the TEDx. So some of the things I've done is I've written about my story, and I'm submitting it to CBC Nonfiction Awards. Another thing I've done is I auditioned for acting. There was an acting call for a commercial, and I auditioned for it. And even though I don't have any acting experience, I actually got a call back. That was really cool as well. And I actually used my TEDx video to get the audition, which is really cool. I've also decided that I want to do more speaking, that I want to do this on a more regular basis. So I've created a speaking website, and I plan to go after more speaking gigs. What else have I done? Oh, I've gotten interviewed at a podcast, Vancouver Entrepreneur Podcast. And yeah, I think that's it. So connect your why to your story, because that's going to help you to not only create impactful talks, but also it's going to help you to connect with the audience and to help you to reach their minds and their hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Marinaz. I would like to suggest that all of those small wins added up to one big win for you and for TEDx. We really enjoyed watching Marinaz through her journey last year, from the auditions through to the main event, and now beyond as well. And we're so glad that you were able to join us tonight. The other thing I noticed was that even here, as you're talking about your story, you can feel in the audience the empathy and how people want you to tell your story, and they want you to succeed. And I think that's something that most of the speakers will confirm, is that when you're on that stage and you're standing in this red plush carpet, the audience is with you the whole way. So that's a great thing to keep in your back pocket. Our next speaker is Janine Graham. Janine's a public speaking coach from White Rock. She's coached a number of speakers from other TEDx groups. What? There are other TEDx groups? Over the years, and is well versed in the perks and pitfalls in preparing for your talk. She's going to give us a little perspective on what to expect as you transform your concept from an idea to a talk. Janine Graham.
Good evening, everyone. It's quite a change to be the one up on this beautiful red carpet as opposed to the one supporting all of the speakers. And it's such an honor to be asked to be part of this. So thank you for having me. I first want to acknowledge all of you for having the courage to take the first step towards becoming a TEDx speaker. And I think it says a lot about who you all are, that you showed up today, and to let the universe know that this is what you want to do. So congratulations on taking the first step towards your journey. So I work with public speakers from all walks of life. And as Mike said, I have worked with several TEDx speakers. And along the way, there's a couple of things that I have learned that I really would love to share with you. And these are just a couple of tips. And if you have more questions afterwards, you can find me and we can talk a little bit more. So the first thing that I want to share with you is that you need to love the process. Love the process of creating an application. Love the process of going to the audition night. Love the process of writing your TEDx talk, because it is about the process. I have been the second pair of eyes to more applications to TEDx than I can recall. And there's one speaker in particular that I've worked with several times on different applications. And we had this one amazing session together, and we were brainstorming an idea, and she was getting so fired up about it, and she was so excited. And she told me afterwards that that energy kept her burning for days afterwards. So she fell in love with the process of creating her application. So that's the first thing that I would love to share with you. The second thing is that as you become a speaker and you get to stand on this stage, and I know they have some wonderful coaches that you'll be working with, this idea of a checklist, of getting ready to be on stage. Sometimes, and as I'm feeling right now, I'm already feeling like I've got a dry mouth. How many of you have experienced having a dry mouth on stage as you're talking? right? Okay, so part of the checklist that I help clients to develop is you're gonna drink 3 to 6 liters of water within 2 days before you talk. So by creating this checklist, you're gonna be prepared to be on stage. And that includes things like, what are you gonna wear? So we don't have high heel malfunctions. You're not the only speaker to have told me that about this beautiful carpet. And things like, what are you gonna do as you're standing in the wings and you're watching the speaker before you and you think, oh gosh, the butterflies are in my stomach. So what kind of practices are you gonna have on your checklist? Are you gonna have some vocal practices to get your voice up and ready? So what are you gonna have on your checklist to get you ready? These are things that are so important to think about ahead of time and to begin that practice of doing as you are rehearsing, okay? So the third thing that I wanna share with you is about feedback, and I'm so glad to hear that you're gonna be having a bunch of rehearsal nights and nights to get together and support one another, because starting with feedback and doing it often and closer to the beginning of developing your talk is gonna support you and get you further faster. Because as Scott was telling us, you know, somebody's got a really great idea and that they were able to receive feedback and change it and create something even better than what they had before that other people in the audience are going to love to hear, because that's what we're here for. We're here to inspire and to transform the audience in front of us, okay? So I've also been asked to share a little anecdote. And this one is about somebody who is still in her journey of becoming a TEDx speaker, but the beginning of her journey was really beautiful and unique. I met her, and it took a long time to convince her to become a speaker. So it's okay if you're the first time in this audience and you might not make it to the application process this time, or if you don't get an audition this time, keep being part of that process and keep being convinced to come back. And so she really wanted to get on stage, and she was asked to be a national spokesperson. And she had had several life-changing events. She had an accident in Mexico that almost killed her. Then she had cancer, and then her dad died of cancer. And all of these things that occurred to her, she had to move through in order to feel confident to be on stage. And so as we were working together, all of this was coming up for her. All this emotion was coming up. And it was so crucial for her to process that, because then when she was on stage and she was being an advocate for this not-for-profit, she was so engaging. She was so vulnerable. And that's part of being engaging with your audience, is how can you have that vulnerability? How can you get to that place within yourself, in your preparation, in working with coaches, in creating your talk, that's going to transform your audience so that they can go and transform their lives as well. So while this speaker is still in process and has made it all the way to the audition process herself, as you know, you keep working at it and you keep falling in love with the process and you keep creating great processes like a checklist as you get to different stages within the process and receive feedback, not just from your loved ones, because your loved ones are great, but outside feedback's even better. So seeking that feedback early and often, and go for that vulnerability place. Don't be afraid of it, but have the support around you so that you can develop that. I wish all of you the best of luck, but I don't even know that you need it, because you've taken the first step on this journey. Congratulations.
Thank you, Janine. Our next speaker, Trevor O'Rourke, is not only a TEDxChilliwack speaker from 2017, but has now joined us as a TEDx speaker coach and is part of the speaker selection panel. Gotta update my notes here. Outside of TEDxChilliwack, Trevor's skills and passion revolve around leadership training. Trevor will share with us the power of storytelling and how it can transform a good idea into a powerful talk. Trevor O'Rourke.
Thank you. Okay, picture with me this. I'm going to try to describe this the best I can without a PowerPoint. So imagine one of those water pumps, like those old school water pumps. You know, you got to keep reefing on it, and eventually you get some water out, right? So imagine this is in a farm field, because that's where water pumps usually are, right? I'm thinking. I've never actually seen one of these things, so bear with me. And the farmer comes out, and he looks at this water pump, and he says, you know, I haven't used this thing I wonder if it even works. I haven't even touched this in a long time. I don't even remember how this got here. So he goes up to this water pump, and he's pumping away, and he's pumping, and he's pumping, and he's pumping. Nothing happens. Takes a break, and he's like, whew, getting a little tired out here. Let's try this again. Maybe this thing works. We're still not sure yet. So he's pumping away, and he's pumping away, and nothing comes out. Now, I don't know if you know how these water pumps are designed, but they go way, way, way into the ground, similar to the depth of a well. And as you're pumping, that water source is slowly coming up that pipe. Slowly, slowly, slowly. But as soon as you stop, it all just falls back down. So you have to start again. Now, this story is a great metaphor for life. If you think about it, everything that you try to do has that initial challenge, and that result is not always visible. We don't see the water coming out of the pump yet. But if we only knew how close it was to absolutely flowing and gushing water, had it been 5 more minutes, 1 more rep, 1 last try. It's a cool story. Let me tell you another one. This was this year, spring break. So there I am as a typical parent trying to figure out what are my kids going to do for spring break. Okay, my son seems okay with going to his typical kung fu camp he goes to every year, trying to become a ninja, like legitimately. But what's my daughter going to do? I know she's interested in horseback riding the last couple of years. So I'm going on the websites that I can find, and I'm like, is there horse camps? Is there something horse-related for my daughter? And I find this cool camp. You might have heard of it. It's in Maple Ridge. The name's escaping me right now, but it's been there for 60, 70 years. Kids go there for a week, and they do what kids do at camp, but they also ride horses. Perfect. Sign me up. Take my money. In the sign-up process, though, I noticed in the fine print that there's no cell phones allowed. And I thought, okay, well, but maybe that's something to do with building social skills or something. I'm on board with that. Cool, no cell phones. But can I let her take one in the case of an emergency? Surely I can. So I'm already signed up, and I'm dropping her off, and I figure I'll save this question for when I get there. Like, obviously, they're going to let her have a cell phone. Like, what if something happens? I need to talk to her every night and make sure she's alive. So I asked one of the little 13-year-old camp counselors, imagine me walking up to a little 13-year-old like, hey, I got a question for you. And so I asked her, like, hey, I'm just going to let her have her cell phone so I can call her every night. No. What do you mean, no? Like, I'm not saying she's going to be on it all day on Facebook or whatever. I just need to know. I have to be able to get a hold of her. So she runs, and she can see I'm getting visibly stressed at this point because I'm trying to imagine how could I possibly go a week in the era of helicopter parenting without speaking to my child. I can't even go a few hours most of the time now that she's texting me. That's another story entirely. So the chief camp counselor, whatever you want to call them, comes out and explains to me, like, this is just a policy. We've had this for years. So I said, okay, well, let's compromise here. Is there like an office phone or something that, 7 o'clock every day she can go to, give me a little report, hey, Dad, I'm alive, I'm okay, I have 2 legs and 2 feet and 2 hands still? Nope, sorry, it's a policy. And the first night's usually tough, but trust us, we've been doing this for years, and this is part of the process, because the problem is, when one kid starts to do it, that homesickness spreads like wildfire, and suddenly you have like 500 crying kids like, where's my mommy? So I'm still trying to rectify this. How am I going to do this? How's she going to do this? Like, surely she's going to be crying herself to sleep wondering, where's my dad? Where's my dad? So I'm going to fast forward because I don't want to take you through how painful, absolutely unbearable these 5 days were. And there I am driving up to pick her up, and I haven't seen her. I haven't talked to her in 5 days. Is she alive? Is she okay? Please tell me she's okay. Did she fall off the horse? Did she scrape herself? Did she have some kind of emotional breakdown? Was a kid mean to her? There's probably so many terrible things that have happened to her, and I wasn't there for her. I'm a horrible father. So I'm waiting. The doors are closed. I know the kids are in there. This is the process. They're going to come out eventually. Kids start coming out. Nope, that's not mine. Nope, that's not mine. Nope, that's not mine. Where is she? Did she get lost? She got kidnapped. She got kidnapped. I know it. And then finally she just walks out with this big smile on her face and just kind of like, oh, there's Dad. Hey, Dad. What do you mean, hey, Dad? Like, run over here like your life depended on it. Let's get some hugging going here. I'm sorry I'm such a terrible father. Obviously, I didn't say that. But she was totally fine. It was me. That was the problem. And this really helped me take a big step in my life in understanding how to cross that void of trusting your children and just letting them go a little bit. And I started to really have a lot of thoughts around, what if I had taken too long to do that? And suddenly I have a 30-year-old that I'm still ironing underwear for them. I'm sure there's a few people that are in that boat. Let's take a look at this for a second. So what's just happened over the last 6 minutes? And the first story was a bit of one of those life lesson parables, if you will. As an audience and as a speaker, we're both a little distant around that. We don't emotionally connect to it, but it's kind of a cool idea. It's got that, well, yeah, that's kind of cool. In the second story, this is me getting vulnerable. I'm sharing something with you. I can even feel the shaking in my voice when I think about my daughter and how terrible I felt. Now we're emotionally connecting to the context, and I'm adding emotional texture into whatever I'm talking about. At no point yet have I said anything about an idea. And so at this point, we're just having a good time and we're having a conversation, and these are cool stories, and I'm sure you all have cool stories too. But I can't stress enough how powerful storytelling is when you weave it into your idea. Because the first step is, I got an idea. And this actually happened to me before my TED. I met with friends, family, and I said, boy, have I got an idea. I'm gonna be famous, check this out. And I went through my idea, my genius idea, and every single time I got the same reaction. I don't get it. One more time, could you go through that again? And sometimes that's what happens. Our idea is sitting in there, but it's dying for some kind of story to emotionally connect to its audience so it starts to make sense. So in the process of designing your talk, idea is always the first step. Hopefully not story is the first step because, well, and I shouldn't say that actually, because sometimes the talk is the story. It's your life, but the idea comes from how that story brought you to this XYZ place. But to digress and go back to what I was trying to say, you got your idea, and then you start building your stories around your idea, and this is where it really starts to take shape. This is where the talk starts to come to life. And I find even as I practice, and I do speeches, and since my TED Talk, I've done a couple of keynotes. I was at BCIT this year. I find that when I've really got my stories nailed, I can fill in the rest. And suddenly it becomes less of a script and more of a conversation with the audience. So I would challenge you when you're going through the process, and I love the process, and I fully agree that you should love the process, every single step of it, and think about all of those little things that are going to happen. But I would challenge you when you get to that, if you get selected, when you get selected, as we've said, maybe it's this year, maybe it's next year, keep trying, love the process. When it's time to build that script, really put some thought into that story. Practice it with some of the folks you have, and you never know. Maybe what you think is just some sort of anecdotal memory of something that happened in your life at face value doesn't necessarily grab the audience, so learn how to craft it so it does so. There's all kinds of ways to do that, and if I could end on this note, the founder of TED, if you read a little bit about his biography, of course the idea of TED was to share ideas. But the motivation behind creating something to let people share their ideas was because he was so frustrated at the amount of ideas that will never be shared with the world, because the person that had that idea just couldn't tell the story around that idea. So it died with imagine how this world would have been changed if some of the geniuses that have already passed away could have just figured out how to tell the story around their idea and engage an audience and compel them to think about it and change whatever they were doing. Stories are everything. I'm a big fan of them, and I think you should, I'm like, how do I end this? I can see I'm at 30 seconds. Weave the stories into your idea. Capture the audience. It works. Thank you.
Thank you, Trevor. It's been 11 minutes. You may need to text your daughter, let her know you're okay. I'm sure she's worried about you. Tim McAlpine was also a speaker at our first event in 2016. Since then, Tim has been the TEDxChilliwack license holder. Ooh, yeah, I know. However, that phrase really minimizes all that he does for us. He's instrumental in all organizational and technical aspects of the event itself. In granting our license, TED has many conditions that we have to follow. We as organizers and you as speakers also have to comply with those conditions. So now Tim's going to explain some of the key things you need to know, from timing to trademarks and everything in between. These are the details we all need to know before anyone can take the stage. Tim McAlpine.
Thanks, Michael. So I've deputized Carlene. She now knows how to do video editing. It's been a wonderful presentation so far. I'm not going to belabor a lot of it, but we as license holders of the TEDx brand are brand ambassadors. It's not our brand, it's not Chilliwack, so there are a number of stipulations that the organization puts on us and that we kind of govern. Originally, when I spoke in 2016, I thought that there were these imaginary, or at the time, I thought they were real TEDx cops and that they were policing everything we were doing. But really, as we've gone through it, it's a self-policing activity. And most of it is to protect you, the speakers. So one of the things is your talk has to be 100% original. It can't be lifted from anywhere. It can't be plagiarized. Your images, it's so easy to go to Google and search and click on that images tab and start pulling images off. All of the images themselves have to be copyright free or royalty-free copyrighted images that you can license from something like Flickr or a stock website. So we can walk you through that as you're building your slides to go along with what you're doing. You have to be 100% off script. And for many, that's difficult. I've spoken many times before, and I like to have my notes on my secondary screen, and there's no wiggle room. The more that you put into it, the more practice, the more that you get out of it. And for myself going through it, it was quite revolutionary. I was practicing this thing so many more times than I had ever done a talk, and so when I did hit the stage, it just came really natural. So no matter how much you try to wiggle around your coaches and the team, there is no script, there is no teleprompter. And with that, Chris Anderson, who's now the CEO of TED, he really puts it far more eloquently than I could and has a great video here. It's about 6 or 7 minutes long that will explain what we're looking for in a TED Talk.
Some people think that there's a TED Talk formula. Give a talk on a round red rug, share a childhood story, divulge a personal secret, end with an inspiring call to action. No, that's not how to think of a TED Talk. In fact, if you overuse those devices, you're just going to come across as cliched or emotionally manipulative. But there is one thing that all great TED Talks have in common, and I would like to share that thing with you. Because over the past 12 years, I've had a ringside seat listening to many hundreds of amazing TED speakers like these. I've helped them prepare their talks for prime time and learned directly from them their secrets of what makes for a great talk. And even though these speakers and their topics all seem completely different, they actually do have one key common ingredient. And it's this. Your number one task as a speaker is to transfer into your listeners' minds an extraordinary gift, a strange and beautiful object that we call an idea. Let me show you what I mean. Here's Hayley. She is about to give a TED Talk, and frankly, she's terrified. Over the course of 18 minutes, 1,200 people, many of whom have never seen each other before, are finding that their brains are starting to sync with Hayley's brain and with each other. They're literally beginning to exhibit the same brainwave patterns. And I don't just mean that they're feeling the same emotions, there's something even more startling happening. Let's take a look inside Haley's brain for a moment. There are billions of interconnected neurons in an impossible tangle. But look, here, right here, a few million of them are linked to each other in a way which represents a single idea. And incredibly, this exact pattern is being recreated in real time inside the minds of everyone listening. That's right. In just a few minutes, a pattern involving millions of neurons is being teleported into 1,200 minds just by people listening to a voice and watching a face. But wait, what is an idea anyway? Well, you can think of it as a pattern of information that helps you understand and navigate the world. Ideas come in all shapes and sizes, from the complex and analytical to the simple and aesthetic. And here are just a few examples shared from the TED stage. Sir Ken Robinson, creativity is key to our kids' future.
My contention is that creativity now is as important in education as literacy, and we should treat it with the same status.
Elora Hardy, building from bamboo is beautiful.
It is growing all around us. It's strong, it's elegant, it's earthquake resistant.
Chimamanda Adichie, people are more than a single identity.
The single story creates stereotypes, and the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete.
Your mind is teeming with ideas, and not just randomly. They're carefully linked together. Collectively, they form an amazingly complex structure that is your personal worldview. It's your brain's operating system. It's how you navigate the world. And it is built up out of millions of individual ideas. So, for example, if one little component of your worldview is the idea that kittens are adorable, then when you see this, you'll react like this. But if another component of your worldview is the idea that leopards are dangerous, then when you see this, you'll react a little bit differently. So it's pretty obvious why the ideas that make up your worldview are crucial. You need them to be as reliable as possible a guide to the scary but wonderful real world out there. Now, different people's worldviews can be dramatically different. For example, how does your worldview react when you see this image?
What do you think when you look at me? A woman of faith, an expert, maybe even a sister, or oppressed, brainwashed, a terrorist?
Whatever your answer, there are millions of people out there who would react very differently. So that's why ideas really matter. If communicated properly, they're capable of changing forever how someone thinks about the world and shaping their actions both now and well into the future. Ideas are the most powerful force shaping human culture. So if you accept that your number one task as a speaker is to build an idea inside the minds of your audience, here are 4 guidelines for how you should go about that task. 1, limit your talk to just one major idea. Ideas are complex things. You need to slash back your content so that you can focus on the single idea you're most passionate about and give yourself a chance to explain that one thing properly. You have to give context, share examples, make it vivid. So pick one idea and make it the through line running through your entire talk so that everything you say links back to it in some way. 2, give your listeners a reason to care. Before you can start building things inside the minds of your audience, you have to get their permission to welcome you in. And the main tool to achieve that? Curiosity. Stir your audience's curiosity. Use intriguing, provocative questions to identify why something doesn't make sense and needs explaining. If you can reveal a disconnection in someone's worldview, they'll feel the need to bridge that knowledge gap. And once you've sparked that desire, it will be so much easier to start building your idea. 3, build your idea, piece by piece, out of concepts that your audience already understands. You use the power of language to weave together concepts that already exist in your listeners' minds, but not your language, their language. You start where they are. But speakers often forget that many of the terms and concepts they live with are completely unfamiliar to their audiences. Now, metaphors can play a crucial role in showing how the pieces fit together because they reveal the desired shape of the pattern based on an idea that the listener already understands. For example, when Jennifer Kahn wanted to explain the incredible new biotechnology called CRISPR, she said, "It's as if for the first time you had a word processor to edit DNA. CRISPR allows you to cut and paste genetic information really easily." Now, a vivid explanation like that delivers a satisfying aha moment as it snaps into place in our minds. It's important, therefore, to test your talk on trusted friends and find out which parts they get confused by. 4. Here's the final tip. Make your idea worth sharing. By that I mean, ask yourself the question, who does this idea benefit? And I need you to be honest with the answer. If the idea only serves you or your organization, then I'm sorry to say it's probably not worth sharing. The audience will see right through you. But if you believe that the idea has the potential to brighten up someone else's day, or change someone else's perspective for the better, or inspire someone to do something differently, then you have the core ingredient to a truly great talk, one that can be a gift to them and to all of us.
Well, all right. Didn't really think that through, being in the dark for 8 minutes, sort of not even making any kind of subtle movement, but I think it worked out okay. So we're going to transition with a Q&A with some of the key organizers and turn things over to you to ask some questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim. And as Tim mentioned, you need to be 100% off script for your talk. So here's a pro tip for you. Don't wait until 4:30 of the day you're doing a presentation to actually write what you're going to say. Really. I kid you not. So it's time to get your burning questions answered now. Barris, on your far right, Scott and Tim are here to answer your questions. We also do have other people seated in the audience, hiding in the dark. If one of these three gentlemen cannot answer the question, and anybody have a question, I'm going to repeat it because we are videoing this and we want to make sure that our audience hears the question as well. Debbie. So I'll paraphrase your question. Can you help us with, no. The question was that some of the talks that you see on the TED.com and TEDx.com do not seem to fit into the three main categories of technology, entertainment, and design. And how do we weave that into our talk?
Well, I'll give a try to answer this. So if we think back to, this is now our 4th year, and really in our 2nd year, we had a tremendous amount of applications that were life overcoming an obstacle talks. And while those are inspirational and worthwhile, they don't really go back to the ethos of what TED was founded on. And so we put in the application form, does this fit technology, entertainment, or design? And what was interesting last year was entertainment became miscellaneous. I couldn't fit my talk into something, but it was through that lens that it should be forward-thinking, it can't be completely personal. And so as you think about what your idea is, it might not fit those exactly, but we'd like you to try to frame it within those. I know it's difficult.
We also try to remind everybody that TED started with technology, entertainment, and design. And in order to have a good show, we'd like to have some variety in the show. So reminding people that there's technology, that there's entertainment and design are the major themes. Obviously, there's bleed from other types of categories, but if we can get a lot of variety, that makes it a more entertaining show rather than having the entire day be the same sort of talks over and over again.
And with that balance, like even in those showcase application nights, we can't put 100 people on stage. There just physically isn't enough time. So we whittle those down to about 13 per night, and we try to have a variety. You would be at a big advantage if you can take technology or design and think through those lenses, because we found it very difficult to find a lot of those talks.
I think Scott was going to add that you don't want to say the same thing as someone else. Is that right? That was it. All right, another question in the front row.
I had a question for you. You were talking about copyrighted. You were talking about copyrighted and photographs, and I understand that. I was thinking about Pamela Mayer's talk when she talked about spotting a liar, and she had videos that were taken off TV, and I just wondered how you would stop from that kind of copyright.
The onus is on the speaker or the creator of the talk to get rights to do that. So you would need to write to that source and get permission to do so. And if they give it to you, it needs to be attributed. So you'll see a small credit in the bottom corner, and that's totally okay. But it's really not our responsibility to do that for you. It's important that we say, is all of this able to be posted? Because if it's flagged, it won't be posted, and ultimately, I think everybody wants that treasured video.
Any other questions? Sure. So the question is, we have so many people applying, upwards of 100 we're expecting, and how do we narrow that down and choose the people for the applicant showcase nights that are featured for that? Scott?
It's a vague science. I can tell you that we go through all of them, and we try to compare the like ones to the like ones, apples to apples, oranges to oranges. So if we, like last year, I think we had 5 or 6 different people talking about stepping away from technology and connecting with people. And obviously, I think one of them got through, and the 2 or 3 that we actually selected for the showcase nights, we put them on the same night because we didn't want to, if we had one on each night, then it would become hard, especially with the audience selection. Theoretically, all 3 of them could have been, and then that's exactly what we're trying to avoid. So yeah, we just base similar topics on their merits and try to get the most likely one through to the audition nights.
Have a great idea. Have a really, really great idea, something that's unique. And the selection committee looks at it and goes, oh my God, we want that. And we had several of those last year. And they don't dominate. So if you have a great idea, make sure that you explain that clearly so that it excites us, and then we have a great show.
And the selection committee, last year, Scott developed a judging form, essentially, and each of them did it in...
A selection form.
A selection form. And each judge went through every application and scored them under a number of different criteria. And mathematically, those rose to it. And then there was a meeting to have a discussion around it, because we also want to make sure that we are putting on the stage a diverse group. Not all men, not all middle-aged men. It has to be a diverse group of speakers. So,
we're a little heavy on middle-aged white men. So I'll paraphrase his question as well for the viewers at home. The question for Scott is, he's been a speaker in the past, now he's on the selection committee looking for speakers, and is it better as a potential speaker to have a short speech that can be expanded and ideas added to, or to have a longer speech that you can cut pieces from? Scott?
The answer is yes. I mean, everybody is different and everybody memorizes things. Like, there are some speakers that memorize word for word for word the whole entire talk. And there are people that just, like Trevor was talking about, just going up and weaving a story, and you don't need to memorize it per se. Generally speaking, whenever I do it, like, I forgot 2/3 of what I was going to tell you tonight, but I had 2/3 more that I could fill it in with. So again, the idea was delivered. I hope it was delivered. But everybody's different. The mentoring process that we have, that really helps, break it down to the bare minimum, and then you build it back up. And if you want to speak and you work through that, it'll be a great day.
Yeah, the origin story of the 18-minute TED Talk, Chris Anderson was asked, well, why is that? And he said, well, they used to tell people 20 minutes, and they'd show up and speak for 25. 18 sounded like a very scientific number. And it is a criteria. We cannot submit a talk to the YouTube uploader that goes through review on the TEDx side that's more than 18 minutes. It just will not go. So that's important. And like Scott was saying, some of the most impactful, memorable, best TED Talks are most watched are 4 or 5. And so even think of yourself. I subscribe to the daily TED newsletter, which is really useful to do. It comes and it's got the little time code underneath. And if it's 18 minutes, delete. I don't have that kind of time. But if it's 6 or 7 minutes, I think I can spare that while I'm eating lunch. So that's something to bear in mind as well. Shorter is, I think, better.
So the question is, what is the time boundary for talks? 18 is obviously the maximum. What is their minimum?
I've never seen a minimum published. I've seen talks 3 or 4 minutes. I think in order to translate an idea, you're going to need more than a couple minutes. But I think a sweet spot is 8 to 10.
You have another question over here? Yeah, I have 2 things. So let's address that question and come back for your second one. So the question is, in the written application, it can be difficult to really get your idea across. Sometimes it's easier for people to speak than to write. And so what is it we're looking for in that written application? How can you communicate your idea best to hopefully get selected?
I would say get to the point is probably the most important thing. Again, if we have hundreds of applications that we need to read and review, if there's the stories that Trevor was talking about when you're speaking wouldn't really apply to an application. Just get to the point and try to catch us as quickly as you can.
And then, sorry, go ahead.
We added a couple fields last year specifically to help us along the way, but it was also really helpful for both the speaker and us to understand what's your talk title and what's your 100-word description of it.
And also, you've got this idea. Explain why you're the thought leader in that area, why we should want to hear this. It doesn't have to be long, but we read the idea, that's a great idea. Now, why does she want to do this? Well, that's interesting. She's got this experience behind her, and you're planning on doing other research in these areas. Give us all that detail. That shows us you're serious.
So you've got a second question? Great question, thank you. So are there
Would you like to be one?
Are there any women on the selection committee? Scott, do you want to address that?
Sure. Kathy Funk, she's been a coach and on the selection committee for the last 2 years. She'll be on here for the 3rd year. I believe Kelly Babcock, last year she was our tiebreaker, so she's not a coach per se, but she's part of the organizing committee and she wanted in there. So she was a tiebreaker in the case and she was instrumental again in getting Brenda Dick in there because again she was the wild card. And yeah, we definitely try to keep it as across board as we can, not just as white guys.
Yes, and not just for the speaker selection committee, but all aspects of our organizing committee. We're looking for women, young people, people a darker shade than me to join our committee, share some ideas, give us some new blood and some new input as well. We're definitely open to that. So the question is, what do we do now? Now that we've had this night, what's the next step?
You weren't listening to my section, but that's okay, because I stumbled around a little bit. No, basically, if you go online right now to TEDxChilliwack.com, there's a place where you can do the online application, and you have till November 19th to submit that application, and then we will sit down and go through and pick the best applications and then announce on social media, I think, and
the
personally, the successful applicants to the applicant showcase night. So it's quite exciting. It's meant to be. That's what we were trying to create some buzz.
And again, Barris needs to attend the meetings. Because Tim is sitting in this seat right now, he cannot put the application form up on the website until later. So don't run out and apply immediately because you won't be able to. But by tomorrow, the application form will be ready to go. But you do have until November 19th to get your application in. Take some time, think it through, talk to people, make sure it makes sense, and that you've got that great idea obviously written into your application.
One other point to that, though, is 95% of the applications come on the Sunday of the deadline.
Don't encourage
so,
that.
No. I mean, if you want to stand out, again, get it in, don't sacrifice your idea, but the sooner you get it in, the more likely you are to have an actual long read from everybody.
Another question up front. So Tim, I'll let you handle this question. The question is, when you begin the application form, because it is a little bit lengthy, not too long, but can you save it and come back to it, or do you have to complete it all at once?
It is a one-time, there is no login or profile where you can return. So if you're not able to, well, I would suggest starting a text file or a Word document and working on your answers and then cutting and pasting them in when you're ready to go. Just for clarity, the next slide that I'm going to click to is my final. It does say the application deadline is November 20th, the Tuesday that we talked about at the last meeting. So there has been a variety of different information going over, but I will clarify that, and you'll see it on the website. So.
I'm just the eye candy. I don't have to think. Yes, a question from Kim. So Kim's question is, if you do not live in Chilliwack, are you eligible to apply?
We've had applicants last year from Russia. We had applicants from Toronto.
Texas.
Texas. Two of our speakers that made it were from Vancouver Island. Ernez is from North Van, I believe. So we do try to keep as much local content as we can, but a good idea is a good idea too. And we're trying to deliver a show the day of, so tie goes to the local person for sure. And most of the applicants are local. I hope that answers.
Yeah, and some clarity around that. If you are out of town, it is quite a commitment because we are requiring people to come to rehearsals to be a part of it. And also, I forgot what I was going to say.
Teleprompter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we've kind of said the Upper Fraser Valley is a sweet spot because it is TEDxChilliwack. There are other TEDx's. There's an Abbotsford now. There's a Langley Education, White Rock, etc. These should be ideally stories about Chilliwack or coming out of Chilliwack.
Or that apply to people from Chilliwack.
One thing that none of us actually mentioned, and I thought I should just mention now, where there's stumbles on stage, and sometimes that happens, even the most practiced TEDx talk, you might run into the wall and need to start again. That's okay, because we're filming this and we're going to edit this so that it looks good at the end. So we're going to explain that to the audience when you're doing your talk. And so you're going to be nervous no matter what, but you'll also know that there's a safety net there, and if you feel like, that didn't quite start out right, you can start the whole thing again from the beginning. We don't encourage it, but that allows you to make sure that we have a really good video, which is the thing that lives on after the show.
By take 37, you'll have to come back on Sunday, though.
All I can suggest is watch Barris's talk when we post it, and he'll be a smooth talker.
There you go, exactly.
I had a question in the third row. Nope. Okay, up front.
So from...
Okay, so the question is from the application period to the applicant showcase night, if you're selected, how long should you make that showcase night talk?
Maximum 4 minutes. We'll put 13 people on stage. We rent the Cottonwood 4 cinemas for a 2-hour period, and we get access right after the movie, and we have to vacate before the next movie. Yeah. So it is boom, 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 and there will be a timer and so forth. There's a couple questions that come from the hosts. I remembered what the item was. Last year, we had a few folks say, well, thank you for allowing me to speak at your showcase night. I can't be there. And we made the exception and allowed 3 people to submit videos, and we're not going to do that again. None of those people got through, and I think there was no emotional connection with the audience that does an audience vote as well as the judges. And so we kind of pushed 3 others out of the running by allowing that. So it might not fit your schedule when you find out. We have some flexibility in that they are 3 consecutive Thursdays, late in January and early in February, but we will assign one, and ideally we want you to show for that.
It's an exciting evening, all 3 nights. It's a lot of energy. It's like watching, what's the show called? The Voice? The Voice. Kind of like that, and you don't know who's going to win. The audience all gets to pick their favorite And I encourage you, even if you don't get selected to be on stage, come and watch, because it's really neat and it's free.
I think rather than The Voice, I would say it's more like Survivor. But
Carlene, could you pull mic 1 and 2 down just a touch? We're getting a little bit of reverb.
okay, we've got time for one more question. Anybody have a burning question in the third row here? Great question. So the question is, our theme on purpose can mean many things to many people. So during our main event, what are we looking for on purpose?
In short, we don't really know. We leave our themes really, really broad because, is that funny?
We thought we were smart.
Yeah. Last year it was time to reboot, and we had a whole bunch of different examples of starting over or recreating. On purpose is just, for me it means staying on task. For you it might mean something completely different.
Yeah, it's up to your interpretation, and that's what we want to see. We've come up with this theme, which is partly a marketing piece, so that people, that's how we market the event. But we also understand that everyone's going to have a different interpretation of what on purpose means to them. Did you do it on purpose, or did you, is it with purpose that you're moving forward? So we leave it to you guys to figure that out for yourselves.
We'd rather inspire some creativity than stifle. So yeah, it's wide open.
Well, great. Thank you for all your questions tonight, and thank you for coming out. We hope that we've answered all of your questions, but if not, many members of our organizing committee will be available in the lobby, and there are some snacks in the kitchen to your left as you leave the theater as well. So make sure you talk to one of us. I'd like to thank a couple of people that didn't necessarily make it up on stage, but still played an important role tonight. Carlene McVetti is our new tech expert. Learning on the fly, gotta like that. Mike Della Fortuna was here to support us and to be our roadie. And Shannon Smith helped out at the registration desk. Thank you, Shannon. And of course, Mary Erickson, my co-MC for our main event. Thank you for having this idea, and hopefully it was worthwhile to everyone here tonight. So thank you all for coming out. Thank you.